for me, this sequel worked. It not only took what I loved about the first movie and made it interesting, but it also was able to explore some much more mature themes. It makes it for a nice, refreshing sequel. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Epictastic Joshua. If you are new here, if you are a returning member, consider hitting the subscribe button and such, especially if you're new here, because it does help my channel get more people interested. My name is Joshua Drake. I talk movies, TV, music, and on a few occasions anime. And we're going to be discussing the latest Pixar film, the 28th in their catalog, Inside Out 2. This is a 9-year, almost 10-year long-awaited sequel to 2015's Inside Out. This is directed by Kelsey Mann. It stars Amy Poehler, Maya Hawke, Ayo Edebiri, Adele Sarpoulos, Paul Walter Hauser, Tony Hale, and so many other people in this. Joy, sadness, anger, and fear and disgust, they have been running a successful operation in Riley's head by all accounts. However, when anxiety and a new set of emotions show up, they aren't sure how to feel. So they have to try and coincide with each other, but are also having to deal with the emotions from the previous film for trying to find themselves, joined by these guys. And Pixar, it is safe to say that Pixar is one of my favorite all-time animation studios. I know that they've been slacking a little bit in terms of stuff. It's not been the best track record for them recently, even though some movies I actually really like of theirs. I loved Luca. I loved Turning Red. I'm sorry, Onward. I thought Onward was underrated, but not the best. And so I came around on it. Lightyear was not the best, but it definitely wasn't the worst. So I was actually looking forward to seeing how a sequel to Inside Out was going to go, knowing that this is going to be years later. And I was a little concerned because it's been so long since the first one, and the first one seemed pretty good as a one-off film, but I was always interested to see what other stories they could do and other emotions they could play up in Riley's head. And so we finally got this, and it just came out. And I will say that Inside Out 2 is another great film. I loved Inside Out 2. I will say this is probably one of the best Pixar movies in recent years. For me, this sequel worked. It not only took what I loved about the first movie and made it interesting, but it also was able to explore some much more mature themes. It makes it for a nice, refreshing sequel. I will say the biggest praise in the room is the story here. This time we see Riley as a 13-year-old girl who's not played by the same actress, by the way, Caitlin Diaz. This is played by a different actress, Kensington Tallman, as Riley. This time we see Riley having to deal with a lot of different emotions in her head, which is the fear of anxiety, the fear of stress, the fear of ennui, and so much here. And this is naturally the part in this that it builds upon the world of Riley's head. There are a lot of clever additions that reflects on the tumultuous experience of puberty poignantly in a beautifully done way, which is such a sigh of relief, because that was another thing I was nervous about. How are we going to tackle the subject of puberty? Because puberty, in talking about that in movies, is very difficult to get that cracked, whether it's good writing or bad writing or mediocre writing on the right hands. And I feel like they did it in a way that was entertaining, and I felt like they did it in a way that was satisfying enough. And it feels more like a completely necessary sequel that develops Riley into her own character, intertwined and separately with her emotions simultaneously. This is a balance that is very tricky, but it's pulled off rather well. You still get joy and such those characters, joy, fear, and disgust. And but also when they bring in some new emotions that I really enjoyed. And I think each of those emotions are done very well in this. They take a very good way to make the emotions feel like themselves. Like this time we have envy, we have ennui, we have embarrassments, and we have anxiety. And this movie touches on some very important themes, especially with anxiety, which since this is years later and since Riley is starting to mature, it felt like they had to do this. But it never got to a point where it was just being overly sappy and such. I felt the way they wanted to go about these tackling of emotions, especially with anxiety, because I'm someone who has a lot of anxiety. I deal with anxiety on a regular basis. I have touched on this in my review of Bo's Afraid, but I want to touch on it here. I get anxious for a lot, whether it's movies, whether it's something personal with me or such. I just get a lot of huge anxiety with things. And also it teaches the lesson of the inevitable, like your anxiety of growing up, because as we get older and as we grow up, that's just something we inevitably have to do. And we do wonder, are we gonna have the same friends? Are we gonna be the same as we were now? Are we gonna be able to be in control of our anxiety and such? That's what I really appreciate when it comes to the movie. That is what I really think this movie really does do a great job at. For some people, it will be a little bit too much here. So I will say this is something I do think the adventure of the main emotions was as compelling as this time. It may not be the best way to do it, but I like the way they choose to go about it with this adventure of them having to go on this sad journey. And I really do like that. And the scenes with Riley are the very meat and potatoes of this movie and where it works the best. And there's still plenty to love about joy and fear and sadness and disgust. That's what I really liked. And I will say all the returning actors for this is really good here as far as this. Amy Poehler is still great as Joy. She never misses a beat. She gets right back into character. Lewis Black as Anger, I thought still really does a fantastic job in his role. I think he's really damn good in here. Phyllis Smith as Sadness is fantastic also, is once again. I also really enjoyed Lisa LaPera, who's taking over for Mindy Kaling. Yep, we got some recasts here with Fear and Disgust. And a lot of people don't like Tony Hill's voice. I don't mind his voice here as an actor. He does fine when you give him something to work with. But I will say here is Fear, I think he does do a pretty good job, and a pretty entertaining one as well. It does annoy me that they didn't get Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling to come back because they wanted a lot more money than Amy Poehler. But what can you do? Say, the new emotions also really did a very good job in this here. I really enjoyed Ayo Edebiri as Envy. She is a new cyan emotion. I've already been a fan of her since the Turtles movie, and I'm really excited seeing her. She's very good in this movie. Here. Paul Walter Hauser as Embarrassment, he had me laughing a lot sometimes, because that's pretty much how we can feel sometimes. It's like you can relate to any of these emotions and be like, that's me. And Embarrassment, I thought he had some of the best humor as well. Adele as Sypnosis as Ennui, who is basically the indigo bored emotion, she was fantastic. I think she was good, very good in this movie, and she is really good here. I do want to see what else she has done, and I really think she does a fantastic job in this. And I know she's got another movie coming out, so I'm very excited to see how she does there. And I do know her from Blue is the Warmest Color. Yes, I watched that movie, okay? I did. Shut up. Thought here she was great as Ennui, and she really held her own. My favorite character in this movie was Maya Hawke as Anxiety. And simply because, not only just because I love Maya Hawke, I think she is great and she is really making a name for herself, but I also thought that she really just made a lot of great funny moments here, and she's very fantastic in this movie. I thought she really held her own, and I really thought that she brought out a lot of what you would see in Anxiety. There is a reason why when she was casted, she made the filmmakers cry, and so that is just something I give a nice detriment to. So she was fantastic in this. The new actress who plays Riley, she's just as good as Caitlin Diaz as Riley. Diane Lane and Kyle MacLachlan does a really good job as well. You also have Lilimar and Yvette Nicole Brown. So the acting in this movie is great. The score here, once again, I love the score. It's just an entertaining music in this film. It pays very well for a movie that is 97 minutes. It don't feel like 97 minutes. It feels like an hour and 14 minutes because it goes by so quickly. I have noticed this a little bit with some movies I've watched. Across the Spider-Verse, for as long as that was, I never once felt it. Dune Part 2, it has moments where it slowed down in a few scenes, but it mostly kept the pace going. And even Furiosa recently. So I like when a movie wants to invest their time, and when I get invested. I never complain a lot about a movie, no matter how long or how short it is. There's a few occasions where I will do it, but it's only because an act of love and an act of fair criticism. But this, I do think the runtime flew by just by. Animation is gorgeous. This is Pixar we talking about, so $200 million, you're on your way to making that back in the next couple of weeks. I just appreciate the direction and the writing and the filmmaking on display for not losing sight of what that original film was. I could say maybe an issue here is, I will say, this is a minor nitpick. I do wish we could have gotten Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader to come back, but they wanted that $100,000 or more money, so you couldn't really do much. But ultimately, I have no complaints when it comes to this movie. Inside Out 2, for a sequel that could have been unnecessary and should have been one of my worst of the year, I had a lot of excitement going into it, and my excitement was met. I think the story was good. I love the voice acting, and it just, the themes that they play on with puberty and anxiety and growing up actually really does make this really worthwhile. I was very much entertained by Inside Out 2. If you have kids or if you want to go see it yourself, I am definitely suggesting you all go see this. You're not going to be seeing this on Disney Plus for quite a while, because this is a 100-day movie schedule for the release, which is what every movie studio should be doing with a lot of these movies, especially movies like this and Furiosa. I love this. This is one of my favorites of the year, and I think this will go down as one of Pixar's best sequels. And if they do ever want to make a third film to round out the trilogy, I'm here for it with these emotions. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay epitastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.